What up, guys? It was King. They were doing like Eden Garden, Project Eden Garden. Now we about to go to time. Maybe get a fight by being night. We completed the investigation. And me, great, and we can have a thing the other day.
Fingers crossed.
In love with each other. You go on.
Listen to me.
Come on, Dave. I don't know what I'm doing in class trial. A bunch of these, I'm like, with the last trial, like, you don't want the trailer for chapter 1. I saw one of the main game for the trial. But we are there. Once there, we waited for the others to arrive. Really, everyone has showed up. So, how you guys feeling? What do it, Joe?
Yeah.
How I'm feeling. I can't tell how I feel. I don't even know what I feel. I'd rather stay tough for this trial. Damn, get a group already. Fully go, enjoy up there. Try that made it the case.
Hi.
Hey. Before it was daddy, but I was. Do you check the taser? Right, I did. Any findings? Just one. The taser black. The gun black.
Huh?
Oh, mixing black. What? Eh? Also, the ground. Oh, no, not again. Oh, hold on. Hold on, everyone. But you know, it's some more intuition and understand this. You're at a bill. The trio. Damn it.
Shit.
Well, we had a call him something short. I'll pay empty during a trial, so not keep gold. Let's not keep the goat guy waiting.
Holy!
This ain't really happening. We so build. We are totally going to die.
That's how it is.
You are going to expect to fail. Chances are you will.
Game over, man! Game over!
I'm going to think of failure if more people said
Hold
that.
your horses.
Look at it. That way. Who here? Who are the card will stack against? 14 people working together to solve a murder or one person trying to leave.
Are we ready?
No way. Anyone in April go, it ain't a group, but
Do you think?
you make a good point. Sorry for the eye. In our favor.
It'll be okay.
Exactly. Luck will be on our side.
No, it's not.
And luck on our side wouldn't be a kill. It wouldn't be a kill, yeah. Can I say something before I go? Before we go? Well, a message for the killer.
What did you say?
A message for the killer. To put the hero who killed Look game. However you are, please step forward.
I want to help.
We don't do the trial. I'm gonna bring it already. Then please. Diane, please, no.
Come on.
Is someone determined enough to commit murder. They won't back down. Please. Yeah, I got a message.
Dumbass!
Don't forget that the punishment fit the crime, asshole. Enjoy the fucking death penalty. Calm down, great. Yeah, we're offending your boy. Great, we're in the appeal. Do the opening of the
Can I
case.
go now?
Cosign.
Slow down.
Yo, Boki, wait up. One by one, and we'll get go already. Open a little thing like dun, 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 dun. So all the characters and the player who died, like dun, 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 dun. But it'll be a different. But maybe I'll be paying another tape on. But like it'll be dun, 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 dun. Every way, see who, where, you know, like it's something like that. The same everywhere, the same. James Lloyd. And an echo and yet something was different. Someone was gone. Someone who I never held it. I was gone, but who was still a person nonetheless. A person with feeling, a person. Appalachian. A person with a family, a person who I never would speak again. Not a single word. But am I ready for this? What I did during the bet I could done. But Cassidy though would probably like try to be goofy like he did last time. Like don't just shut her down because I actually like for that. To leave me to get killed. I don't know until I do it. Until I face the child hand on. No way I could play my fate other. Yeah. I'm gonna conclude. It's fine depend on me. And what does some help with the Eva and some movies that can at least help. I adjust my tie at the tall and when movement completely stopped. Then the door in front of her opened.
Rise and shine.
And somebody called it Emily. Yeah, I think I called
Isn't this
a
lovely?
deja vu. You only playing.
How interesting.
After all, back and forth. Honestly, we'll get death portrait. After all that back and forth, it's simple. Hold on, let's say it. It began with Crash. Only one beat. No, let me say.
Yeah.
Just to remind them. So, all name of portrait, poison. You can start Ori. Did poison change color? Fire poison.
The show must go on.
Wow. I don't want to do this.
Oh, crud!
We gotta do. Say otherwise, what Lady Mighty get mad. Where have Maul been the entire time? Like, is Maul even a character? Like, is he still gonna appear like once every chapter? Like would he appear during the trial only? Like, she had to film the whole chapter 1. But maybe do film later on. No, we the power to obey chosen. You can.
Hey.
It's okay, everyone. And we work together, so we can do this.
We can't give up.
Right, guys. And we work together. We can solve the case. So come on, let's do this for work game. Wait, hold up. Why did Damien the killer? But he does hitting. He woke up at 8:30. Just imagine he had the one who killed Book Gang. Like we just I don't think he did, but it's a possibility. But no, Kyle Day was free, but it was a question I could have helped I feel conflicted over it. No more than like should have been, my feelings. I'm gonna get more fear. Man, I'm not going to talk about for a day now. I've been angry over the month. Maybe how many people be sending me for tell the truth. Through my attention. I'm angry, but that didn't mean I want to be right. I want to be happy or either pull me off. But it ended like only a certain story. To think the tragedy will have people just let it to me. But who the one who trust each other? If Ruben has on you, if you are going to protect themselves while they each other, maybe be here. God, regardless, I can't let myself consumed by what if. Although the other man I feel I protected will get murdered. I at the very least can solve it. Go to kill her. Like he killed her through like actually getting people help. I come to murder, kill it. Let them come to the attitude. Other usually they're blue. Like the person who died is red. People who still alive are usually blue. The people who die are red. Oh, Buckaroo. You don't want to save. Oh, if you freaking. Oh, we don't need this right now. Too difficult. What is normal? Yeah, maybe I want to look back and then. Hey, no kind. We're doing normal. No kind in this one, though. Get trial. Okay. Like, this would be probably the best work that you had to try. Always had the most work that did. Some point, like when play the character thing, the main character thinking, can't really hear them. I mean, yeah, we actually read them, but Oh, we gotta read them. You read them. It'll take you forever to load. Oh, yeah.
Let's get this started, shall we? Welcome back to the trial grounds, everyone.
Yep, welcome back.
Unlike previously, today will be no circus. No mockery woven with stitches and needles. A true, fair, and proper trial will commence. Battle of wits between the blackened and the spotless.
He looks exactly like his mom. Maybe he had the orange hair. Although, didn't dad have green eyes for the picture? I can't tell. But what the girl have green eyes?
I doubt I have to explain the rules to you
Girl
again. But even so,
Girl in the portal.
you must vote for who you believe is the blackened. If the blackened receives the majority of votes, only they will be punished, and the rest of you will resume your killing game experience.
Dun, 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 dun. Okay.
However, if you vote for the wrong person, then expect no sympathy from your hosts. All spotless students will meet a tragic end, while the blackened will be granted release
I think
from
everyone
this
knows
academy. Happy discussing! We pray for your survival and success.
Can someone please break this silence?
Yep, you did.
I don't want to talk about this.
Wolfgang deserves justice.
Yep, he
But
does.
putting everyone's lives on the line like this is just cruel.
Yeah, but someone got paid.
crap. Without a lawyer, we're totally screwed. Whenever I turn my head, I keep expecting to see him at his podium.
Oh, don't cry, Toshiko. He's in a better place now, you hear?
Whichever one of you sick bastards did this, whatever it takes, no matter if I have to kick the brains out of every single person here, I'll find you.
Do you really gotta resort to violence?
Let's just stay calm, okay? Making peace with our situation is How the hell can I stay calm when there's a killer on the loose? That bastard is watching us right now, fully content putting our lives on the line. Is that what you call peace? Being at the mercy of some dickhead silent observer?
Oh, I love the child.
Well, nobody knows for sure if the killer is even a silent observer. If anything, the killer might try to feign innocence through other means. For instance, pretending to be outspoken about the case.
Oh.
What the? Are you accusing me of something?
I
He
mean,
knows him.
what you
Great
did
knows
during the
him.
investigation seems really suspicious.
What did Grace do?
She
Yeah,
stood
we
in
don't-
front of Wolfgang's dorm room and wouldn't let anyone go inside. Intentionally or not, it really hindered our investigation.
Because of Grace, almost everyone who planned to investigate Wolfgang's dorm gave up and went elsewhere.
Yeah,
It was only after some of us started
think
protesting
Grace
that
did
she
it.
finally relented. You know, for someone who seems so adamant about finding Wolfgang's killer, it's odd she tried to conceal potential evidence.
I'm not saying Grace is definitely the killer. I just think we should be cautious of her.
She has an alibi, though.
Huh?
Grace couldn't have murdered anyone, because she went to the game tournament.
Grace attended the tournament?
Does that rule her out from committing the murder?
Well, yeah. We had to be at the dining hall by 9 a.m.-ish, which was like half an hour before the murder. Nobody left the tournament after it started either. Nobody I know of, anyway.
There weren't many of us there. Had someone disappeared, It would have been obvious.
So, Grace is off the hook? Wow. That plot thread resolved itself quicker than I was anticipating.
So Jean, Grace, and Kai attended Cassidy and Jet's game tournament.
And me.
And
Damon and I also attended the tournament. We can also vouch for Grace.
Okay.
You guys aren't lying, are you?
What the heck? Are you seriously doubting 8 testimonies?
If the 8 of you were really together when Wolfgang was discovered, then Kai, doesn't that contradict what you said before the investigation? You told everyone you and Damon found Wolfgang first. How is that possible if you guys never left the dining hall?
I never said I didn't leave the dining hall.
But earlier you told us you were with the other attendees.
That's because us partygoers left the dining hall together.
Mm-hmm. When the blackout struck, the tournament folk joined arms and headed straight downstairs. I would know. I saw him.
There was a blackout?
You don't remember?
actually, I don't recall a power outage either.
How could that be? Did an alternate timeline converge with ours?
Only happened on their side. Okay, Dippy.
I got it.
Dude, that was easy.
The reason not everyone experienced a blackout is because only the building containing our dorms was affected. If I had to guess, the courtyard and tree area are connected to separate power sources.
So the tournament attendees were affected, yet they left the dining hall? Why not stay put until the power returned?
Because we were the ones who brought it back. It didn't seem like the power was being restored anytime soon, so we took up the challenge of fixing it ourselves. And just our luck, boom! We found a spare generator lying in one of the storage closets. Of course, then we found Wolfgang.
She's right. The 8 of us split into 4 pairs and inspected a storage room each.
Yep.
Because of the toaster trinket map, we know which ones too. Eva and Grace check storage closet A. Jet and I check storage closet B. Damon and Kai check storage closet C. And Jean and Mark check storage closet D.
Yeah, I was with Grace. She can confirm being with me too. Yeah, we were together.
Oh, I didn't realize. I'm so sorry for what I said earlier.
Sorry? You're sorry for accusing me of murder. Sorry doesn't cut it, you conniving two-faced bitch! If you really want my mercy, then get on your knees and beg for it!
Whoa! Uncool, dude.
That's how it goes.
Hang on. Even if you aren't involved in Wolfgang's murder, you must know something about his last known whereabouts.
What makes you think she'd be privy to that?
You see, there's proof Grace spent last night with Wolfgang.
Grace and Lawyer Man? Talk about an unexpected pairing.
When I investigated Wolfgang's room, I saw a bunch of golfing equipment inside. Also, there was a blue woman's jacket tossed over the mantle of Wolfgang's bed.
He's right. I also saw the equipment and the clothes.
The clothes are understandable, maybe. But why was golfing equipment in the room?
Yo, little history dude. Wolfgang must have spilled the beans with you, right?
Why would Ulysses know anything?
Exactly.
Common courtesy. If you're gonna have a
would-
one-night stand, you gotta let your roomie know in advance.
Common courtesy also says you should watch your mouth around children.
Yes, ma'am.
So if I'm getting this right, Ulysses is bunking with Wolfgang?
Well, we only shared a dorm for one night.
You aren't bunking with him anymore?
Let me provide some context. As you may remember, after Desmond suggested everyone bunk together, the male students were directed to the dining hall. Once there, we played rock, paper, scissors to determine who would partner with who. Jet partnered with Mark, Desmond with Jean, Damon with Kai, and I with Wolfgang. Those were the pairings at the time. However, the following day, Grace and I agreed to swap rooms.
Yeah? Why'd you do that?
For reasons.
Totally not suspicious.
It was a win-win situation. I get Grace out of my hair. She gets me out of hers.
You two were originally bunking together?
The pairings were decided via a game of tic-tac-toe. I wasn't big on my partner being chosen for me, so when the opportunity arose to change that, I took it.
Thus, I became Winona's roommate, and Grace became Wolfgang's.
Can confirm. I watched the whole thing play out.
Since the room swap happened the night after we implemented the bunk buddy system, that would mean Grace and Wolfgang have been bunking for about a day and a half. Ugh, gross.
In that case, Desmond was right about those two being together last night. Grace, did Wolfgang act strange at any point? Like, maybe he said something that stuck out to you, or, oh, maybe he had trouble getting to sleep.
No. Nothing weird happened last night. Nothing happened last night.
What?
The morning of the murder. This morning. Wolfgang told me he felt sick.
Sick?
Uh-huh.
With a stomachache. It hurt so bad he couldn't get out of bed. I was gonna cancel my plans for today, but he convinced me to attend the tournament. So, I left his room right after the morning announcement. And yes, I'm talking about the game tournament. The same one Wolfgang acted all hesitant about attending. Newsflash, I changed his mind after breakfast yesterday.
Hold on a sec. That ain't what you told me this morning.
What did Grace tell you?
Yeah.
Simply put, she felt like competing. Grace knew I planned to compete as well, so she asked me to be her sparring partner, since you needed one to enter the tournament.
She withheld information.
That she did. Of course, since I now know Wolfgang's condition at the time, I can't say I blame her. If someone you cared for was in a vulnerable position, would you go around and admit that in a killing game? No. You would try to protect that person by saying nothing at all.
When you put it that way, man, sounds rough.
I think it's obtuse.
Huh?
Say we assume the best of Grace. She withheld information not to trick anyone, but to protect someone she cares about. What then should we make up the glaring contradiction in her testimony?
What the hell do you mean, contradiction?
If your bunking partner was too ill to make the short trek to the dining hall, how did he walk all the way to the boiler room?
Good point. If Wolfgang really were bedridden.
Now that you mention it, to reach the underground floor, wouldn't Wolfgang need to descend, like, 4 flights of stairs? It's nothing for a healthy person, but for a guy who's supposedly really sick.
It's not my fault it doesn't make sense. It's just what Wolfgang told me.
Yeah. Didn't we decide Grace wasn't the killer anyway?
That's not to say she doesn't know more than she's letting on.
I'm not withholding anything else. Leave me alone.
Why don't you tell everyone the truth, Grace?
I've got nothing else to explain. The last I saw Wolfgang, he was in our dorm room.
Okay, hear me out.
Okay.
Secret hallways.
We would have found those by now.
Maybe Wolfgang was carried by the killer.
That, or Wolfgang never told Grace he was sick.
I wouldn't lie about what he said.
What if Wolfgang used the elevator in the tree?
You're not helping.
Why don't you tell everyone the truth, Grace?
I've got nothing else to explain. The last I saw Wolfgang, he was in our dorm room.
Okay, hear me out. Secret hallways.
We would have found those by now.
Maybe Wolfgang was carried by the killer.
That, or Wolfgang never told Grace he was sick.
I wouldn't lie about what he said.
What if Wolfgang used the elevator in the tree?
Not helping.
Why don't you tell everyone the truth, Grace?
I've got nothing else to explain. The last I saw Wolfgang, he was in our dorm room.
Okay, hear me out. Secret hallways.
We would have found those by now.
Maybe Wolfgang was carried by the killer.
That, or Wolfgang never told Grace he was sick.
Okay.
Why don't you tell everyone the truth, Grace?
I've got nothing else to explain. The last I saw Wolfgang, he was in our dorm room.
Okay, hear me out. Secret hallways.
We would have found those by now.
Maybe Wolfgang was carried by the killer.
That, or Wolfgang never told Grace he was sick.
I wouldn't lie about what he said.
What if Wolfgang used the elevator in the tree?
You're not helping.
That's the thing. I don't know. Don't look. Yeah, I don't know. How would you do the elevator?
Why don't you tell
tree?
everyone
It
the
lead to
truth,
the class trial.
I've got
Am I
nothing
no-
else to explain. The last I saw Wolfgang, he was in our dorm room.
Okay, hear me out. Secret hallways.
We would have found those by now.
Maybe Wolfgang was carried by...
No,
That's wrong.
It's true Grace's testimony is inconsistent with where we found Wolfgang's body.
Yeah.
But that's not Grace's fault. The only person we should be blaming is Wolfgang himself.
What the heck? Why are you blaming him?
Simple. Because he lied about being sick.
Seriously?
You can cooperate. Can't you, Toshiko? During the investigation, you told me you saw Wolfgang in the hallways at 8:10 a.m.
That's after I left.
Yes. I remember now. Ingrid. She developed a headache, so I went to the pharmacy to find some medication. The trip itself went fine, but when I returned to the hallway, I found myself face to face
With Wolfgang? Hold the phone! Toshiko actually saw Wolfgang?
We had a normal, pleasant exchange. He appeared perfectly healthy and even mentioned going to the tournament. Of course, he never made it.
I don't want to be that guy, but
yeah.
Can anyone confirm this?
Mm-hmm. I heard them chatting a while in my room. Though I was bedridden like a sitting ghost, I could still make out their voices here and there.
Strange. He told Grace he wouldn't attend the tournament, but then said the opposite to Toshiko.
Sounds like he was telling fibs to conceal his actual intentions.
And what's his true plan supposed to be?
To go to the boiler room. Most likely.
I'm lost. What business would a guy like him have down there?
Oh no, no.
This is it.
During the investigation, I found this note tucked away inside Wolfgang's blazer pocket. A lot of it is water damaged. The paper looks like it was ripped from a notebook, and the handwriting was done in ink.
Wait. Only one guy we can notebook.
But some parts are still legible.
This mentions the boiler room.
Exactly. The fact we found Wolfgang in the boiler room, and this note in his pocket, it can't be a coincidence. This note must be the reason Wolfgang went there.
That mention of a secret sure is suspicious. I'm willing to bet Wolfie's reason had something to do with it.
Agreeing to meet a stranger in some spooky, dark place? Wolfgang had nerves of steel.
Ulysses, Grace, do you remember Wolfgang getting delivered a weird note?
No. The only time I recall him receiving anything was when Tozu distributed those envelopes.
Wait, what they want?
About a note.
What you got the person who killed him?
Really? Wolfgang shared nothing with you guys?
Guess he didn't want them to know what it said.
Right. And if Wolfgang wanted to keep this note a secret, he would obviously want to keep the meeting a secret too.
Then the reason he told Grace he felt sick
was to remove her from the picture. Once she's not in the room, Wolfgang has his opportunity to sneak out and head downstairs. That's also why he encouraged her to attend the tournament.
Didn't this same guy ask us to share our blackmail with each other? Talk about double standards.
Are we sure he wasn't just trying to protect Grace? Maybe he knew he was meeting someone dangerous, so he thought it would be safer not to involve her.
That does sound like something Wolfgang would do.
Not to interrupt, but on the subject of blackmail, did Wolfgang ever confront the person he had?
Oh? You don't know whose blackmail he got?
Well, if you recall what Wolfgang said originally.
I mean, never actually Damien never confronted Wolfgang.
Regardless of the blackmail's contents, it would be treated as a matter between the recipient and the subject of the blackmail, which makes me wonder, could whether or not Wolfgang confronted his person?
I'm not picking up what you're putting down.
If that person somehow realized Wolfgang carried their blackmail, but never came forward about it, they could have demanded Wolfgang show it to them, hence the mention of a secret. However, if Wolfgang did confront his person, I don't see why that same person would then send him a threatening note. Not least act coy about information they both know.
If the person being blackmailed wasn't the one who wrote the note, who was?
Obviously, it would be the student with Wolfgang's blackmail.
Oh, I knew that.
Yes, the secret in question may actually be a reference to Wolfgang's blackmail.
Is there any way to figure out whose secret it is?
We'd probably need to know whose blackmail Wolfgang had first.
Oh, I've got just the idea. Yo! Person who Wolfgang had blackmail on! If he gave you your blackmail back, can you say something?
Don't forget the person with Wolfgang's blackmail.
Oh, right. Hey! Person who's got Wolfgang's blackmail! If you're innocent, say something already!
Tell me what. I don't know.
I was hesitant to admit it, since I knew it would put me on the spot. But I'd rather be suspected than be the reason this trial comes to a standstill.
Are you confessing? Do you have Wolfgang's blackmail?
Nah, not his.
Seriously?
However, it's thanks to him that I have my own.
Your own?
Wolfgang approached me the same day everyone received an envelope. Funnily enough, it happened right after I'd finished speaking with my own person. He and we had a good talk. He gave me his envelope and asked me to take care of it. If you need the proof.
Ah, Wolfgang's envelope had the same signature.
I held on to the letter for safekeeping. This should have all been said sooner. I realized that. I suppose my pride was stronger than my rectitude. My mistake for stringing everyone along.
I mean, at least you're honest.
Truth! Thanks for letting us know, bud.
Indeed. To recognize, to acknowledge one's own misdoings is a most virtuous feat, I believe.
Right. It's very noble.
I take it our other blackmail person isn't gonna step forward?
If nothing happens, let's just have everyone recite whose blackmail they got one by one.
Huh? You sure that's a good idea?
No one's reciting shit!
It was only a suggestion. Calm your farm.
Even if we knew who had Wolfgang's blackmail, that doesn't necessarily mean they're his killer. It's annoying they won't speak up, sure.
But
unlike
you!
John, they would actually need to reveal Wolfgang's blackmail to prove they have it. This person might just want to respect Wolfgang's request to keep the blackmail between two people. Especially now that he's gone.
I don't know.
But
is it really okay if we never find out?
Circumstantial evidence alone can't prove something beyond a reasonable doubt. If we want to solve this case, we need indisputable evidence.
Yeah. It's like doing a jigsaw puzzle without the box art to help you.
The case is?
Obviously, the case. The more pieces you connect, the clearer the image you're constructing becomes. The clearer the image, the more you can assume about it. Do you see what I'm saying? Once we know how Wolfgang died, the rest of this case should fall into place.
You certainly talk a lot stranger than you used to.
Yeah, but
I
you
think
got
I get it.
clothes.
Well, I don't want to be the one to start, but we can all agree Wolfgang was stabbed to death, right? When I was in the boiler room, I saw a knife bobbing around in the water near him. And on the ground, there was blood. Dried blood. On the boiler room floor and on the hallway floor.
That's gotta be Wolfgang's blood, right?
The knife was bloody, so...
Seems like a brawl happened in the hallway. While poor Wolfie was minding his own business, he was confronted by the killer, who attacked him and chased him into the boiler room.
That would line up with how we found him.
What happened? Oh, the woman died. Yeah, the burns. The burns.
Is this really how you guys think Wolfgang died?
The bloody knife is way too big of a coincidence. It was floating in the water right next to him.
Not just that, there's blood on the boiler room floor and along the underground hallway.
A confrontation must have happened in those hallways.
Yeah, it was probably a sneak attack. The killer snuck up on Wolfgang, stabbed him from behind. And the rest is history.
With that knife-wielding villain on his tail, Wolfgang had no other place to run but the boiler room.
So, the killer entered the boiler room after him, which was when they, you know, ended it.
It all makes sense.
Is this really how you guys think Wolfgang died?
The bloody knife is way too big of a coincidence. It was floating in the water right next to him.
Not just that, there's blood on the boiler room floor and along the underground hallway.
A confrontation must have happened in those hallways.
Is this really how you guys think Wolfgang died?
The bloody knife is way too big of a coincidence. It was floating in the water right next to him.
Not just that, there's blood on the boiler room floor and along the underground hallway.
A confrontation must have happened in those hallways.
Yeah, it was probably a sneak attack. The killer snuck up on Wolfgang, stabbed him.
They hit him from behind.
And the rest is history.
With that knife-wielding villain on his tail,
they might have hit him from behind.
Had no other place to run but the boiler room.
So, the killer entered the boiler room after him, which was when they, you know, ended it.
Is this really how you guys think Wolfgang died?
The bloody knife is way too big of a coincidence.
It was floating in the water right next to him.
Not just that, there's blood on the boiler room floor and along the underground hallway.
A confrontation must have happened in those hallways.
Yeah, it was probably a sneak attack. The killer snuck up on Wolfgang, stabbed him.
That does not dispute the possibility of a confrontation.
but it actually is going closet.
Is this really how you guys think Wolfgang died?
The bloody knife is way too big of a coincidence. It was floating in the water right next to him.
Not just that. There's blood on the boiler room floor and along the underground hallway.
A confrontation must have happened in those hallways.
Nah, it was probably a sneak attack. The killer snuck up on Wolfgang, stabbed him from behind, and the rest is history.
With that knife-wielding villain on his tail, Wolfgang had no other place to run but the boiler.
What?
Not feeling what you're dealing, bro.
His toes and tablet. Ah.
Is this really how you guys think Wolfgang died?
The bloody knife is way too big of a coincidence. It was floating in the water right next to him.
Not just that. There's blood on the boiler room floor and along the underground hallway.
A confrontation must have happened in those hallways.
Nah, it was probably a sneak attack. The killer snuck up on Wolfgang, stabbed him.
No, I missed.
And the rest is history.
Oh, I got thrown.
Is this really how you guys think Wolfgang died?
The bloody knife is way too big of a coincidence. It was floating in the water right next to him. Not just that. There's blood on the boiler room floor and along the underground hallway. A confrontation must have happened in those hallways.
It was probably a sneak attack. The killer snuck up on Wolfgang, stabbed him from behind.
No, what am I aiming at? My aim is up.
The killer entered the boiler room after him, which was when they, you know, ended it.
It don't make sense.
Is this really how you guys think Wolfgang died?
The bloody knife is way too big of a coincidence. It was floating in the water right next to him. Not just that. There's blood on the boiler room floor and along the underground hallway. A confrontation must have happened in those hallways.
Nah, it was probably a sneak attack. The killer snuck up on Wolfgang, stabbed him from behind. And
Ah! Why so long to aim? Why you play on a laptop? You can play on the PC. I mean, a keyboard. You can play on the.
It don't make sense.
Or you can play on it
Is
on
this
the
really how you
PS.
guys think Wolfgang
If we are
died?
doing-
the bloody knife.
It's way too big of a coincidence. It was floating in the water right next to him. Not just that. There's blood on the boiler room floor and along the underground hallway.
A confrontation must have happened in those hallways.
Nah, it was probably a sneak attack. The killer snuck up on Wolfgang, stabbed him from behind. And
I hit it.
With that knife wielding villain on his tail, Wolfgang had no other place to run but the boiler room. So, the killer entered the boiler room after him.
Not way more way to the boiler room. Look at that. One of the boys got something for there. It's like still have like a bunch of things that could be used for moving. I like some things that can.
Is this
We have
really
those
how you guys
fire
think
things,
Wolfgang died?
so it could be used to knock someone out.
It was floating in the water.
right next to it.
Not just that. There's blood on the boiler room floor and along the underground hallway. A confrontation must have happened in those hallways.
Nah, it was probably a sneak attack. The killer snuck up on Wolfgang, stabbed him from behind.
Finally.
Jed, you talk a lot about the knife and the bloodstains on the floor, but did you ever look at Wolfgang himself?
Yeah.
I gave him a glance. Nothing too deep.
I figured. Had you actually taken the time to look at Wolfgang's back, you would have noticed a clear absence of stab wounds. In fact, none of the injuries he sustained were the type to cause severe blood loss. Seriously. We went over the same thing with Cassidy during the mock trial. Couldn't you give Wolfgang the dignity of a proper investigation?
Hey, man! It's not like I didn't try! It's just... this stuff doesn't come easy, you know? Nobody wakes up thinking they'll have to solve their buddy's murder later.
Isn't that exactly what you should be worrying about in a killing game?
Not everyone has the stomach for investigating. That's fine. That's why you got people like me to do the heavy lifting. Since some of us here weren't able to investigate Wolfgang's body, I'll lay out his injuries. There were 2 marks on the back of his neck, a bruise, and a tiny red dot. His hands were burnt too, so 3 injuries in total. Besides that, I caught nothing else.
Burns, you say?
Junior high, my dear Wilson. Can I use the flamethrower?
These didn't look like normal burns. Not the sort you'd get from a stove fire, or a hot iron, or a...
Contradicting my theory outright? Jeez. So this is the thanks I get for vocalizing my thoughts?
Sorry, lass.
Yes, if I may add on to what John said, the burns actually bore a strong resemblance to what you might see in cases of corona paralysis.
Chiaro... Huh?
Ooh, now this I know. Coronal paralysis. It's something which happens to lightning strike victims. Getting struck by lightning is like getting kicked by a horse. The impact is so shocking, some people will lose all feeling in their limbs for a few hours.
I was aware of lightning paralysis, but even I didn't know its official name. That's a nice head you've got on your shoulders.
Lots of people tend to overlook the importance of lightning safety, especially where I'm from. My grandpappy once tried working out in the open during a thunderstorm. Pure luck's the only reason he lived to see the next day.
Sorry to hear that and all, but what does lightning have to do with anything?
Well, if I had to guess, Ulysses, did it look like a big old tree was drawn on Wolfie?
A big old tree. Yes, that's how I would describe the burns on Wolfgang.
So Wolfgang had lightning strike scars?
We're trapped inside a building, though. Lightning can't come from anywhere.
Could he not have been struck before the killing game? Fate is stronger than will, you know.
Nay, those burns were fresh. One look was all it took for me to know that. If he had these scars before, we would have noticed them anyway.
But if those marks were recently inflicted, wouldn't it mean Wolfgang somehow went outside?
Not necessarily. This is only something I thought of just now. The reason Wolfgang sustained burns similar to that of lightning strike victims may be because whatever inflicted his burns was equivalent in damage to a lightning strike.
You saying there's something out here channeling the power of lightning?
The taser. Oh, you the generator.
This is it.
Hey, taser probably.
Ulysses, since you write everything down, do you have a description of the boiler room in your notebook?
Yes, I do. Why?
Since some people here never investigated the crime scene, they probably aren't as familiar with the room as we are. So, you should read out your description of it.
Sure. The boiler room consists of a small concrete platform surrounded by ankle-deep water. Throughout the room are boxes filled with various garbage, and in the back looks to be a generator, charred beyond belief. What you just heard is a brief summary of my notes.
Hear that? There's a generator inside the boiler room. Of all the things which could deal similar damage to a lightning strike, doesn't a generator sound the most likely?
Didn't Ulysses say it was destroyed?
At the time of the investigation, sure. But it wasn't always destroyed. You probably don't remember. But back when we found the dummy, I mentioned something about the underground floor.
okay. Don't even. I'll read it. Can't afford being lower. That was woke up.
To be more specific, it was the boiler room I woke up inside. I hadn't been alone either. Ava was also there.
I woke up first.
Yeah. She did. Anyway, Ava, you agreed the generator was in full working condition when we woke up, right?
Right.
So in the time since you woke up there, the generator was destroyed?
It's the only possibility. As for what destroyed the generator, well, it's hard to say for sure.
The taser?
My best guess would probably be...
Don't waste my time.
The taser's probably get power to make even more.
2 things. First, destroyed is overly vague. Ulysses explained the state of the generator much better. Charred beyond belief. Second, and more importantly, where's your proof the generator inflicted those burns?
What are you talking about?
The cord.
The generator...
Being within range of something counts as proof now, does it? Do you also consider happenstance as conclusive evidence? Funny how the standards shift, if so.
That...
Trying to make me like an idiot. Slow down. Are we doing the sword one? Oh man. Oh, we do it. No, I do it. Okay.
While the generator may look suspicious, consider the time frame we're working with. If the only time you saw the generator in full working condition was on the day of our kidnapping, that gives us a period of almost 4 days, in which the generator might have been destroyed. While the generator may look suspicious, consider the time frame we're working with. If the only time you saw the generator in full working condition was on the day of our kidnapping, that gives us a period of almost 4 days, in which the generator might have been destroyed. While the generator may look suspicious, consider the time frame we're working with. If the only time you saw the generator in full working condition was on the day of our kidnapping, that gives us a period of almost 4 days, in which the generator might have been destroyed.
What about the blackout? It's impossible for the generator to cause the blackout if it was already broken prior to the tournament.
What about the blackout? The building may very well have lost its power at any point before or after the murder.
I'll cut through those words!
Yeah! Down the free triad.
When the blackout happened, it froze a piece of equipment which had been set up for the game tournament. Mark's DJ pad. While there was no physical clock inside the dining hall, a digital one has been built into Mark's pad. If you look at what time the digital clock is frozen on, it matches the time of death listed on the tablet, 9:35 a.m.
Well, Mark, is this true?
There's no point in me saying anything when someone else has already said it better.
Just answer with a yes or no.
Yes.
In any case,
okay,
the matching times were too much of a coincidence. The destruction of the generator caused the blackout, and the the blackout occurred at the time of the murder. There's no way the destruction of the generator wasn't tied to Wolfgang's death.
What do you suppose happened then?
I'm willing to bet the generator's destruction resulted in the boiler room's water becoming electrified. Since Wolfgang was discovered kneeling in the water, we can reason he was standing in—
Damon, you and I both know that's not true.
Huh?
Did you forget? It's impossible for the water in the boiler room to play a role in Wolfgang's murder, because it isn't even conductive. After Damon and I woke up in the boiler room, I tested the water. I even redid my test during the investigation, since Damon wasn't sure if he should touch Wolfgang's wet clothes. In both instances, I proved the water was safe to enter. To be honest, neither result really surprised me. Water will only act as a conductor if it makes contact with two separate energy sources. The boiler room's generator is just one source.
If you're standing in the water, one outlet should be enough. Speaking from experience, large bodies of water are terrifying conductors during storms. All it takes is one lightning bolt, and the surrounding miles are scorched.
But the generator is a slow, persistent source of electricity. It's not the same as a lightning strike.
Electricity is electricity. Doesn't matter how it manifests. The reason you two avoided electrocution is because the generator's exposed wires aren't even touching the
But
water.
now it is.
If they were, you would have been scorched right from the start.
Maybe when the generator was destroyed, some of the wiring fell into the water?
Nah. Even in its current sorry state, the generator's wires are nowhere near
Yeah,
the
but
water.
It
according,
doesn't make sense for the generator to pose a danger anyway. The point of the killing game is for the students to kill each other, not for the facility to kill the students. A feature of the building killing a student would be a meaningless death because you can't attribute a student killer to it.
As for why the generator's been charred, sometimes electrical faults happen. Even my
You gotta
ship's
use the
engines
tape to
have broken
chart
under
the-
particularly relentless. And if an
generator.
electrical fault caused Wolfgang's death, then his murder is purely on the hosts.
Of course! If we were responsible for his death, your lot wouldn't be here discussing it.
Okay, since we've ruled out the generator, what else could have electrocuted Wolfgang?
It mightn't be relevant, but I did see one other thing on the boiler room floor. A toy gun or something. At least, that's how it came across to me.
Not a toy gun, a taser gun.
A taser? I'll shoot electricity!
I'm not sure how the taser fits in with this case, though. It doesn't seem to have been used.
Nope. The taser was definitely used.
How so? I didn't catch any sort of string protruding from it.
Not all taser guns release a string when fired. Some are completely wireless. For those types, you can tell they've been used if their blast doors are missing. Side note, blast doors are plastic panels which cover the muzzle of a taser. If a shot is fired, they pop clean off. When I was investigating the crime scene, I found the taser gun in one spot and its blast doors in another. Speaks for itself, yeah?
And here I was thinking the yellow bits were just random trash.
Where the heck did a taser gun even come from? Last time I checked, there weren't any lying around in the storage closets.
Maybe it belongs to someone here.
Huh?
Just think about it for 1 second. Everyone here has a dorm room which is themed
Yeah.
around their talent.
Wait, hold on.
Mine's got DJ
That'd be
equipment.
Desmond?
Jet's got car batteries. If that's what we have with our talents, what could someone with a dangerous talent have?
Are you talking about, like, knives and stuff? What? Is there something on my
Yeah,
face?
not to the kitchen.
Forget this. The person I'm talking about is Desmond.
Huh? No way! You think the gun is Desmond's?
Yeah.
Hang on. You've got it all mixed up.
John?
Wait, you got
do you know
stolen it
anything
for
about
dead.
this? As Desmond's roommate, perhaps you spotted something inside his dorm.
Alas, we stayed in my abode. I couldn't tell you if he had weapons.
Talk about suspicious.
Did Desmond agree to bunk in Jean's dorm so Jean wouldn't see the...
Listen, that taser gun, it's not mine. I've never seen anything like it.
No, that's a lie.
A lie?
I got it. The blackmail tools you gave us.
Huh?
That's my evidence.
You didn't get mine, did you?
No. But the person who did informed me of what it said.
The writing style seems to match. I think it's legit.
That's more than a little suspicious, don't you think? Leaving a bunch of weapons unguarded during a killing game?
Don't judge me. This is the first time I'm hearing of it too.
You didn't know there were weapons in your room?
Yep, no idea.
Our rooms aren't particularly subtle in their theming. Are we supposed to believe yours is any different?
It is themed. I'm not denying that. But I sure as hell didn't catch sight of any weapons. If I did, do you seriously think I'd leave them unguarded and risk being found out?
Yeah. Desmond cares too much about everyone. He pointed out the broken doorknobs and gave us the idea to bunk together.
Someone must have gotten the idea to rifle through my dorm because of my talent and found the taser gun hidden inside. There's no other way to explain it.
So while Desmond gets a bunch of guns, all I get is an old game console and a dead controller.
Take the bad with the good, dearest pupil. No one fears game consoles. Well, no one besides parents and the religiously inclined.
Enough talking about consoles. Why are you guys believing Desmond so easily? If the taser gun belongs to him, then he's the killer. Any argument he makes against it is just a flimsy excuse. Desmond is the killer. The taser gun came from his room.
I had no idea the gun even existed. I was barely in my dorm to begin with.
Because you wanted to draw attention away from your weapons hoard.
But
If this is about avoiding suspicion, why did Desmond say the taser gun was fired? I don't think a killer would draw attention to their own murder weapon.
I was with Desmond.
Oh, so I missed that. That was.
I call it reverse psychology. You sprinkle in a little helpfulness.
And suddenly everyone trusts you. When the murder happens.
Desmond is the killer.
The taser gun came from his room. I had no idea the gun even existed. I was barely in my dorm to begin with. Because you wanted to draw attention.
Away from your weapons hoard.
But
If this is about avoiding suspicion, why did Desmond say the taser gun was fired? I don't think a killer would draw attention to their own murder weapon.
Oh shoot! How do I keep it?
I call it reverse psychology. You sprinkle in a little helpfulness.
And suddenly everyone trusts you. When the murder happens.
Desmond is the killer.
The taser gun came from his room. I had no idea the gun even existed. I was barely in my dorm to begin with. Because you wanted to draw attention.
Away from your weapons hoard.
but
If this is about avoiding suspicion, why did Desmond say the taser gun was fired? I don't think a killer would draw attention to their own murder weapon.
I was with
Desmond.
I got it.
Oh, I got it. Yeah, got it pretty far. At least not pretty far, but the fruit.
Regardless of whether or not Desmond knew about the gun, he definitely wasn't involved in the murder. Eloise can back me up on this.
right. Desmond and I, We were together in the courtyard at the time of Wolfgang's death.
I see. Then both of you can be ruled out as suspects.
Don't just take her word for it. She could be covering for Desmond.
Jeez, if you have a bone to pick with these guys, at least save it for when we're not solving a murder.
Yeah. Why don't you want to believe Eloise?
Ever since the investigation, these two yuppies have been on my case non-stop. They're obviously working together.
Not gonna lie, I see where Grace is coming from. When Eloise tried to single her out earlier, Desmond was pretty quick to jump in and agree.
Even so, since the topic has been brought up, I would like to mention something. During my trip to the pharmacy, I believe I saw Desmond and Eloise in the court.
You also said you were back in the hallways around 8-10 a.m., didn't you? That means those two were wandering around unsupervised. Either one of them could have left the courtyard.
If Desmond was the killer, what would Eloise gain from defending him? Should the wrong vote be cast, nothing about the rules suggests an accomplice of the killer would be exempt from execution.
That's right. And even if she was exempt, Eloise is too nice to be an accomplice to murder.
Exactly. Oh yeah, murder, but he's probably gonna act.
Grace, I realize Desmond's irked you, but that's no reason to keep steering everyone down a dead end. Let's move on.
A person who's always steering others down a dead end, huh? I guess they needed a GPS. Anyway, we should totally thank Desmond for clearing things up now. Not only do we know he's not the killer, now we know how the killer got their hands on the taser.
Now we know how... What?
Someone must have gotten the idea to rifle through my dorm because of my talent, and found the taser gun hidden inside.
Yup, that is word for word what Desmond said.
Right. Good memory.
All in a day's work, babe.
Can you repeat that quote, Cassidy?
Again? What I just said?
Yeah, but I want you to say it again.
Alright, someone must have gotten the idea to rifle through my dorm because of my talent and found the taser gun hidden inside.
Is there something on your mind?
If Desmond's testimony is anything to go by, then wouldn't this mean the culprit has to be male?
What?
Huh?
If I remember correctly, all the guys were aware of each other's pairings. With that sort of knowledge, a male student could try and infiltrate another male student's dorm.
None of us knew which room we'd be bunking in.
It only takes a quick peek to check if someone's inside or not. Anyone could have done that.
And who's to say the thief didn't barge in before we started bunking?
Or while people were having breakfast.
Seems there was a mountain of opportunities for our culprit to sneak in unnoticed. Doesn't exactly help us narrow things down.
Well, guess this taser gun was a bust.
Look on the bright side. If it's been fired, then it's probably what electrocuted Wolfie. If trying to suss out who stole it isn't feasible, why don't we talk about Wolfie's other injuries instead?
Wait, a chicken.
You know, the ones that weren't burn marks? Those seem like they could lead us somewhere.
Yeah. Besides the burns on his hands, Wolfgang also had a bruise and a tiny red dot on the back of his neck.
A bruise and a tiny dot, huh? Wanna try tackling them in alphabetical order?
Alphabetical order? Now, aren't you full of smart ideas?
No need to thank me. It's only common sense.
Okay, let's discuss the bruise first.
It was a one pin. No doubt about it.
I think it's safe to say the killer didn't use a flamethrower.
Maybe Wolfgang got into a fight? Someone might have attacked him and aimed for his neck.
If you can even reach that high.
Either way, something must have hit him.
What if Wolfie fell over? How spindly he is, one tiny misstep could leave the poor fella bruised for days.
Skinny guys bruise easily, eh? Let's see if you're right. Ulysses, fall over.
No, thank you.
I think it's safe to say the killer didn't use a flamethrower.
Maybe Wolfgang got into a fight? Someone might have attacked him.
If Wolfie fell over? With how spindly he is, one tiny misstep could leave the poor fella bruised for days.
Skinny guys bruise easily, eh? Let's see if you're right. Ulysses, fall over.
No, thank you.
I think it's safe to say the killer didn't use a flamethrower.
Maybe Wolfgang got into a fight?
That's true. Wolfgang probably got into a fight with the killer.
Wouldn't there be other bruises to show for it?
I know what it is.
Don't see why he'd only sustain a bruise to the neck.
Plum. Big blind mind.
I think it's safe to say
Maybe Wolfgang got into a fight? Someone might have attacked him and aimed for his neck.
If you can even reach that high.
Either way, something.
Whoa!
What if Wolfie fell? Bruised for days.
No, thank you.
I think it's safe to say the killer didn't use a flamethrower.
Someone might have attacked him and aimed for his neck.
If you can even reach that high.
Either way, something.
Yeah, let go.
Kai's right. Something did hit Wolfgang.
Really? Man. And I was only blurting out the first thing which came to mind. Anyway, from how you're wording things, do you know what that something is?
A rolling pin. Wolfgang was hit with a rolling pin.
How on earth did you reach that conclusion?
Ava and I found this pin inside storage closet A, which is just a few feet from the. Coincidentally, the pin also has a dent.
You sure that's enough to say it's involved? Could just be a flimsy pin.
No. There's something else which solidifies this pin's role in the handprints.
So the killer used the rolling pin to attack Wolfgang?
It certainly explains the bruising on his neck.
They must have wanted him to be unconscious so he wouldn't fight back.
Exactly. It'd be easier to drag him into the water if he's not awake.
You reckon the killer purposely put Wolfie in the water?
Bam! With one electrified blow, Wolfgang is zapped to bits with the taser. Since he's lying in the water, he's definitely a goner.
Considering the logical ethos of the killer's rectitude, especially when governed under
What
constricted
the
pressure, leaving him catatonic would be the most facile solution.
Never really.
I
Probably
guess
like
it makes sense.
I'm saying I said to, but clearly I don't. What are you fighting about?
So let me get this straight. The killer knocked out Wolfgang with a rolling pin. And then chuck the pin into closet A?
When exactly did they discard the pin?
They couldn't have done it when Eva and I were already downstairs. Because the two of us went inside closet A.
Why were you inside the closet?
To find the backup generator, remember? Jed and I checked closet B. Damon and Kai checked closet C. Eva and Grace checked closet A. And Jean and Mark checked closet D.
The killer just discarded the pin before we came downstairs.
Yeah, I think Mark's right. 'Cause the killer could run upstairs and go back to their room immediately after discarding the pin.
So let me get this straight. The killer knocked out Wolfgang with a rolling pin, and then chucked the pin into closet A?
When exactly did they discard the pin?
They couldn't have done it when Eva and I were already downstairs. Because the two of us went inside closet A.
Why were you inside the closet?
To find the backup generator, remember? Jed and I checked closet B. Damon and Kai checked closet C. Eva and Grace checked closet A. And Jean and Mark checked closet D.
The killer just discarded the pin before we came downstairs.
Yeah, I think Mark's right. 'Cause the killer could run upstairs and go back to their room immediately after discarding the pin.
Okay, I know.
So let me get this straight. The killer knocked out Wolfgang with a rolling pin,
And then chuck the pin in the closet.
closet A?
Because the two of us went inside closet A.
Why were you inside the closet?
Remember?
Before we came downstairs.
I think Mark's right. 'Cause the killer could run upstairs and go back to their room immediately starting the pin.
No, that's wrong!
That would be the people who went up. The first that would be by someone who were innocent.
Diana, there's proof the killer fled the underground hallway at a later time, when the tournament attendees were looking for a backup generator. Kai and I heard someone run past our room.
Huh?
Oh man, that's right.
Yep.
We were just exploring the closet when all of a sudden we heard footsteps in the hallway. That's when Damon decided he was gonna follow where the footsteps came from and entered the boiler room.
Did anyone else hear these footsteps?
Nope. Not ringing any bells.
Yeah, Jed and me didn't really hear it over all our talking.
I heard the footsteps.
Huh? You did?
Well, I initially thought it was my imagination, so I never said anything.
Ashamed to say, I also brushed off the footsteps. Thought I was hearing things. However, since other people can attest to hearing them.
Then someone else was on the underground floor with us.
Before anyone tries to bring it up, none of the tournament attendees could have been the person running. Since everyone explored the closets in pairs, they all have solid alibis.
I'm sure we can all vouch for that, aye?
Everyone was still in their closets after Damon and I found Wolfgang.
Considering the footsteps were moving away from the crime scene, I think it's safe to say they belong to the killer.
Wouldn't that mean the killer fled while you guys were exploring the rooms?
Hold on! So the killer had been right next to us?
Joy, that's a given.
Huh? How are you so calm after hearing that? The only thing which stood between us and a murderer was a door. What if they attacked us?
Well, they did it, so I don't see what the problem is.
Sheesh, you're weird.
Why not run away earlier, though? Fleeing while everyone is searching seems really risky.
Maybe it was a miscalculation?
It's not impossible, I guess.
If not that, then maybe the killer returned to the boiler room after discarding the pin?
Sounds pretty meat-headed if you ask me.
Yes, you'd think a killer would use that moment to run away.
For the two who heard the footsteps, describe the sound.
It was kinda socky. As in, it sounded pretty soft. Like the person had taken off their shoes.
Saki, huh? Seems this killer was purposefully trying to keep quiet.
Cause their footsteps were soft?
That seems like a leap in logic.
No, I get what she's saying. Everyone here has socks on, I'm pretty sure. So any one of us could have run down the hallway. The thing with shoes is, not everyone here has the same kind. If the killer had worn theirs, we might have been able to figure out their footwear from the sound it made on the floor. Then we just have to single out the person with that footwear. Man, it would have been so easy to find the killer.
We already can find the killer, though.
Oi, are you pulling our leg?
I'm completely serious. Picture a map of the building complex in your head. The building with the dorms is on the left, the courtyard is in the middle, and the building with the tree is on the right. Now, try and pin everyone's locations during Wolfgang's murder. Once you do that, the identity of the killer will definitely become clear.
Is the killer someone whose position we can't place?
No, it's not about position.
Eh?
Wolfgang's killer can easily lie about their location during the murder. The only thing distinguishing their testimony from everyone else's is that theirs can't be corroborated.
But I don't know. Oh yeah.
It has to be you!
Diana, it's you, isn't it?
Her? The makeup girl?
She's the only one here without an alibi. Those of us who attended the tournament can obviously be ruled out. And as for those who didn't, Desmond and Eloise were in the courtyard. Toshiko and Ingrid were in the same dorm room.
What about Winona? She never mentioned an.
Give me a break.
Winona and I were in the building with the tree all morning. In fact, yes, Desmond and Eloise should have witnessed us walking over there, as those two were in the courtyard at the time.
Yeah, that's true.
In that case, Diana really is the only one without an alibi.
Guys, if she's the person who fled the boiler room, those footsteps we heard make a lot more sense. Heels make a pretty loud clop sound on hard floors, and the underground hallway's floor is pretty hard. Diana would obviously want to take them. Also, heels aren't comfy to run in.
Whoa! I didn't even think of it like that. You're totally right, though. Since Diana's the only one here with heels, she would have to take them off.
Guys, what are you talking about? Me? A killer?
The fact you weren't at the tournament is incriminating enough.
Not just that. Everyone but you has an alibi.
But I do have an right, Ava? You woke up with me this morning, and you never saw me leave my dorm.
During the brief amount of time we were together, I never saw you leave. What you did after I left for the game tournament, however, is anyone's guess.
Ava wanted to help me and Cass set up the tournament, so we told her to swing by early.
For that reason, I left Diana's dorm at 8:05 a.m. I know the exact time since her room. I probably entered the dining hall around 8:10 a.m.-ish.
So much for an alibi then.
Diana, don't tell me.
Holy smokes, it's all falling into place!
Are we sure there hasn't been some sort of misunderstanding?
It's not possible. impossible! Diana can't be the killer! No! I refuse to believe it!
If it was Diana inside that boiler room, could she be the one who left the blood trail? Because if so, that might be her blood on the knife, too.
Diana's blood? Are you saying she wounded herself?
Wounded herself? What makes you think that?
I don't know! Why else would the killer's blood be on their own weapon?
Did we not already agree? The killer was wielding a rolling pin?
Well, maybe they had both. The rolling pin in one hand, and the knife in the other.
Dual-wielding weapons? Holy, this killer's next level.
Killing fun. Bucket fun. Okay.
If it was Diana inside that boiler room, could she be the one who left the blood trail? Because if so, that might be her blood on the knife, too.
Diana's blood? Are you saying she wounded herself?
Wounded herself? What makes you think that?
I don't know! Why else would the killer's blood be on their own weapon?
Did we not already agree? The killer was wielding a rolling pin?
Well, maybe they had both. The rolling pin in one hand.
No, that's wrong!
No. The killer was only wielding the rolling pin during their confrontation with Wolfgang. You can tell just from looking at the pin. There are 2 handprints wrapped around the edge, as if the killer had been holding the pin like a tennis racket. Which makes sense, because you can swing with more force if you use both hands. And that's what a killer wants when trying to knock out a grown man.
Then, who held the knife?
It wasn't the killer. So it was most likely the only other person in the boiler room, Wolfgang Akire.
What the hell are you talking about? Wolfgang carrying a dangerous weapon? Bullshit!
If you were in his situation, wouldn't you? Wolfgang received an anonymous message asking him to meet in a basement, all whilst in the middle of a killing game. At that point, it doesn't matter how much of an optimist he is. He'd know better than to come unarmed.
A knife isn't super hard to find, either. Wolfgang probably just stole one from the kitchen.
Besides, if Diana is the one who got stabbed, it would explain the blood trail. Think about it. She arms herself with the rolling pin and attacks Wolfgang, getting hurt by him in the process. For some reason, possibly because of the blackout, she doesn't clean the blood trail she's leaving, and returns to her dorm room after.
No! That's wrong!
Huh?
I wasn't stabbed. If I was stabbed, then I'd have an injury. But there's nothing, right? There's nothing on me.
Depends. If a vein got nipped, you'd be seeing blood no matter the size of the cut. Of course, that also means a small cut will need bandaging, which I'm not seeing on you.
You may not see any injuries on Diana, but that doesn't
It'd
mean
be like
they are...
under the clothes.
If she wanted, she could simply hide her injuries from view. After all, someone like her has exactly what it takes.
I got it.
Talent. As the ultimate cosmetologist, Diana could easily cover her wounds.
It makes sense. With the right equipment, she could probably disguise even a bandaged wound.
As Diana's bunking partner, I've seen firsthand how many different cosmetics are inside her room. So unfortunately, I have to agree.
Well, Diana, did I get anything wrong?
No. No.
Wait. Diana, did you just say no? As in, no, you're not wrong that I covered up my wounds? Oh, crap. You guys know what this means, right, guys?
Diana just?
Diana basically just confessed!
A confession? Are you for real?
It makes sense, though, doesn't it? Diana got wounded, which proves she got in a fight with Wolfgang, which means all that stuff about Wolfgang going to the boiler room, all that stuff really did happen.
I see. Diana. She lured Wolfgang to the boiler room by writing him that note. And when he arrived, she attacked him and killed him. And now, she's been lying this entire trial, hoping we would never suspect her.
Diana, it wasn't me. I promise, it wasn't me.
To think she could preach about...
And then try and sentence the rest of us to punishment.
Golly, you're right. If we voted for the wrong person, we would have been executed.
That's so fucked! Seriously, Diana?
Yeah.
What the hell is your damage?
Can we at least hear Diana's side of the story?
Her side?
Well, you know, Diana has, I just think it's fair we listen.
What does it matter what she says? Look at the evidence. This case, it's closed. If you really want to ask for Diana's side of the story, then do it after the vote. No. No, no!
I vote for the killer.
No. No. Diana was the one who lured Wolfgang to the boiler room. Once he got there, she killed him immediately.
Then she fled the crime scene, hoping the rest of us would never learn the truth.
How could you, Diana? Poor Wolfie was only trying to keep us together.
But I would never murder Wolfgang.
If you don't have an alibi, then you obviously did.
But I
wanted to believe so badly that you were innocent. Why didn't I see you for who you were?
If this goes on any longer, I'm gonna be sick.
What are we waiting for then? Let's get this over with and vote!
Yeah, no.
Diana was the one who lured Wolfgang to the boiler room. Once he got there, she killed him.
No, that's wrong!
Hold on. Grace, you're overlooking a crucial detail.
Huh?
Do you recall the note I found in Wolfgang's blazer pocket? It asked him to meet in the boiler room at 8:15 a.m. But, according to the Tozu tablet, he died over an hour later at 9:35 a.m. That means Wolfgang didn't die right after he got to the boiler room.
What's your point?
She innocent.
My point is that the killer had no reason to lure Wolfgang to the boiler room and then wait over an hour to kill him. There's no guarantee another person won't enter the room during that time. It's in the killer's best interest to be in and out of there as fast as possible. when we originally discussed the note. We lack the context to properly understand this time discrepancy. But if we go with your idea that Diana killed Wolfgang immediately, then that discrepancy becomes all too clear.
How do you know Wolfgang didn't just arrive late?
He was already on his way when I ran into him at 8:10 a.m. He must have...
Same goes for the killer. I doubt Wolfgang would stay in the boiler room for long if no one came to meet him. For that reason, we can assume Wolfgang was knocked unconscious soon after he arrived. But there's such a long period of time between him being knocked out and him being killed. Unless you want to tell me he and Diana were in an hour-long struggle, then I'm sure there's more to the mystery here.
Shut the fuck up! What the fuck is wrong with you? Don't you see this is a trick? All of Diana's blubbering and crying is just a farce to make us think she's innocent.
I wouldn't fall for a farce like that. My only concern is the evidence not adding up.
If you're still not convinced Diana is the killer, then let me show you something you overlooked. I call it undeniable fucking proof! I don't give a damn what Diana says. Not only is she the one person without an alibi, the blood from her wounds places her inside the exact same room where Wolfgang died. How can the killer be anyone but her?
If Diana lured Wolfgang downstairs, why would she take over an hour to kill him? It doesn't make sense. Not when there's a risk of someone else entering the boiler room.
What risk? Diana wouldn't have to worry about anyone walking in because she could just lock the fucking door.
I'll cut through those words. The boiler room door can't be relied upon here. If Diana locked it, she would be trapping herself inside the boiler room.
What?
The doorknob has been flipped so that the keyhole faces inside, while the lock faces out. Had you investigated the crime scene more closely, you might have realized this detail sooner. In any case, locking the door would lock everyone inside the room. If Diana was the killer, she'd be better off leaving the door open.
How the heck do you even flip a doorknob? Sounds like something only a tradesperson could do.
Meh. You really think so? Swapping a doorknob is easy. Well, last time I did anything like it was a while ago, but everyone here knows knobs are screwable, right? If you get a screwdriver and know what you're doing, you can rotate the doorknob quick smart.
If you can swap a doorknob, then I guess anyone can.
Right on! Wait, are you saying that like it's a bad thing, or...?
Is that why Diana remained in the boiler room after Wolfgang died? She had been locked inside?
What do you make of the footsteps then? If they were Diana's, it would imply she escaped the boiler room.
Oh, that's the thing.
This is it. Near the boiler room door, I discovered a thin piece of metal. At first glance, it didn't look important, but if you were to fold it in half, theoretically, it would look like a hairpin.
Ah, she used the classic maneuver. Picking a lock with a hairpin. It can be done.
Diana probably had this hairpin inside her makeup bag, so she used it to fiddle with the lock, which, judging by the timing of her footsteps, happened late into the blackout.
Messing with a lock in pitch blackness. Whew. Now that would be impossible for me.
Right. Even if Diana did access light, like through the cozy trinket, undoing the lock would still be difficult. Way too difficult of a situation to deliberately put herself in. Got it. Someone else must have locked the door.
What?
If we go off our current train of thought, the doorknob was rearranged so you could only lock it from the outside. It doesn't make sense for Diana to rearrange the lock, enter the room, and deliberately trap herself inside. I know this doesn't necessarily clear Diana's suspicion, but it's strange enough to warrant further investigation.
I'd rather resolve this threat before we move on to voting.
Agreed. We could easily miss something important if we turn our noses away.
So, why did this mystery person close the door in the first place?
What if they saw the scuffle between Wolfie and Diana and closed the door to protect themselves?
Instead of seeking help? Or trying to stop the scuffle?
You say that like closing the door isn't exactly what you would do.
What kind of asshole do you take me for?
Any chance they locked it to prevent Diana from escaping?
And somehow unscrewed the doorknob without drawing attention to themselves?
Didn't you hear him? He's talking about the door being locked, not the doorknob being unscrewed.
Unless two entirely different people just so happen to interfere with the boiler room at two entirely separate intervals. The one who locked the door is most likely the one who flipped it, yes?
Yes.
Then you should be wondering the same thing. How did they unscrew the doorknob without catching anyone's attention?
Yeah.
Not in the moment, it isn't. But what if, say this person knew Wolfgang and Diana were coming to the boiler room? They could have swapped the knob in advance, waited for Diana and Wolfgang to enter, and then closed and locked the door.
So the flipping of the doorknob was premeditated?
With what we currently know, I'd wager it's our safest assumption. At least until we hear Diana's side of the story.
Diana, since you were the last person with Wolfgang, your testimony could be our most valuable piece of evidence yet. You need to tell me what happened. If not for me, or for you, then at the very least, do it for Wolfgang's sake.
I'm sorry. I'm really I wanted to help. I wanted to make everything okay. But all I could do was be useless. All I could do was watch him die. It's all my fault. All my fault. For doing the wrong thing.
So is this a confession?
No!
Huh?
I didn't kill Wolfgang. And I don't know who did, but I still failed him as a friend. I failed him then. And I failed him here. But if I told the truth, things would be worse than they already are. But now that I've said nothing...
It's okay, sweetheart. Come on now, take deep breaths.
Yeah, we'll believe you no matter what you say.
If I don't, that will be alive.
Has all this murder hubbub left your head in a tizzy? Perhaps you need a short break. Something to lighten the mood and let you collect something like a nice cup of tea. Welcome, one and all, to the first episode of Tozu's Tea Time. If you haven't already, please sit back and relax. Here, we do not use our brains, but deal only in gossip. Now, a question from me to you. What are sheep good at, if anything? Most humans, and some sheep, tend to respond with a resounding absolutely nothing. Sheep cannot create art or invent medicine. For goodness sake, they can't even perform music! Their limited speech and quadrupedal locomotion prevents them from reaching the heights of humans. They're practically glued to the lower echelons of the food chain. No matter how hard sheep may try, they will never be anything more than their number tags. I can't say I like that answer. Too pessimistic for me. Plus, what of the sheep who still try? The sheep who realize their fate but continue to challenge it all the same. That they can be so determined to prove their worth when humans have all but deemed them microwavable meals. Isn't that something admirable? What a shame our sheep had to... it seems that's about all the time we have. Thank you again for attending Tozu's Tea Time. No need for extravagant farewells. I've an inkling you'll be back for tea sooner than... Who's Jack Robinson? I have no idea. Ta-ta!
Diana, now's your chance to defend yourself. Tell me what happened.
Where do I even start, though?
How about you begin by explaining why you went to the boiler room?
Why I went there? It was... 'cause of a note.
A note?
2 days ago, someone slid one into my room. I never got to see who. I just heard a knock. And when I walked over, there was a note under my door.
I don't remember any of this.
Sorry. It was midday-ish, and you weren't there at the time. And I didn't show you the note later because, well, I'll just read you what it said.
Are you aware?
Wolfie wrote this?
Wolfgang had Diana's blackmail? But didn't he have Jean's?
Hold on a sec. If you take a closer look, doesn't it resemble the handwriting on Wolfgang's note?
You're actually right. Even though Wolfgang's note has been water damaged, the words I can make out were in the same messy scroll as Diana's here.
Then someone else was posing as Wolfgang?
The killer, most likely. They must have thought his word was the only one Diana would follow.
Guess it worked, huh?
I didn't want to show this note earlier. Because I was scared of how people would try to twist it. Like saying I faked the note, or that I decided to kill because of it. I thought it would be better to just stay quiet. I know you guys think I'm stupid for agreeing to meet in a place like the boiler room. And I am. I am stupid. I just
you in the fields,
didn't want to disappoint Wolfgang. In case he really did write the note, which was why I left my room around 8:40 a.m. and went downstairs.
Did you catch any strange movement down there?
No, it was just me. I did find the boiler room door hanging open a little bit, but I didn't think much of it. I just went inside and closed the door behind me, since that's what the note asked me to do.
What did you see inside the boiler room?
The boiler room was really dark. So the first thing I noticed was actually the security camera light. My eyes had to take a few seconds to adjust to everything else. I finally saw him. Wolfgang was lying in the water, making these weird noises. It didn't seem like he'd even noticed me entering the room. Wolfgang? Hearing his name seemed to snap him out of his trance. Wolfgang, are you okay?
It's you.
Huh?
I can't believe it. I really am finally meeting you.
You think that his sister?
What do you mean?
Please, forgive me. Please forgive me for what I've become.
Wolfgang?
Despite how hard I tried, how much I wanted it to be true, I could never become you. I will always be a failure.
It's okay, Wolfgang. Look! There's stairs over here. Come over here and we can get out. I have no idea if he didn't hear me, or if he was just ignoring me. Okay. I'll get closer to you then. I went over to the ledge of the platform, the part where the fence had a gap. Just take my hand, okay? And I'll pull. He slowly stumbled over, and he held my hand. I didn't really think I could pull him out. I just wanted to be there for him. It was the best I could do, because I didn't want to enter the water. Staying on the platform felt so much safer, and I really, really hate that it did. It's okay, Wolfgang. We'll get through this together. All right. I was looking at him when I said that. I was looking right at him. Somehow I didn't think to react. And he reached inside his blazer.
Bring her back. Bring back!
I tried to leave the room, but the door was locked. I didn't know what to do. I started looking around for things to defend myself, and that's when I saw the gun.
The taser gun? Did you use it?
I took the taser, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't shoot him. I just backed away from him. I couldn't understand anything. Why was this happening to me? Why was I being attacked?
That you probably
Why
damaged him.
can't I do anything?
I'm not like you. I'll never be like you. I won't give up until the world knows I won't give up. Until everyone
knows me!
All of a sudden, everything turned everything in front of me. Except Wolfgang. In those few seconds, he became pitch black. And then, so did everything else. Even though I didn't see Wolfgang fall over, I heard it, his body cracking against the pavement, and his knife falling into the water. I waited for the gasp of pain, for him to groan or mumble or say something. But there was nothing. There was just me and the silence.
Wait, the generator could handle it. The one had birds called within and died.
That's how it happened.
What the fuck?
That man attacked you?
Oh my goodness, Diana, I'm at a loss for words.
This is getting too much for me, bros. I think I'm gonna faint.
The one thing I had
Holy shit. So Diana really did watch Wolfgang die.
Why was he so violent towards her? It's like he became an entirely different person.
The word you're looking for is crazy.
How'd you manage to escape the boiler room after all that?
By picking the door's lock.
For reals?
I wasn't even thinking. I just started feeling my way back to the door in the dark. Well, my supply bag. I remembered the spare hairpins I always kept inside, so I felt around the bag and dug one out. To be honest, I have no idea how I managed to unlock the door. The whole thing was repeated trial and error.
Yo, though, like, I get the cord cause the generate the birds, cause we can get electrocuted. The most powerful electrocuted, completely fried.
Just minutes of me telling myself that somehow this next attempt will finally—
Whoa! Actually unlocking the doors. That's like hitting a bullseye blindfolded.
Now we know why it took so long for her to escape.
I realized why it happened. Getting trapped inside, I mean. The door's lock was on the outside. So, someone must have set the lock before I came downstairs.
The lock is normally on the inside too. The killer purposely flipped it. As for why the killer locked the door to begin with.
It was to frame Diana, right?
Right.
Yeah.
The killer made Diana trap herself inside the boiler room, so they could kill Wolfgang in front of her, and force her to remain by his body. Had their plan worked, Diana would only be able to escape if someone from outside entered the boiler room. By which point, that someone would be stumbling across what looks like a cut-and-dry murder case.
If the tournament folk found Diana, they would have been playing right into the killer's hands.
Speaking of which, Diana, I'm curious to know. Did you unlock the door before or after the tournament attendees arrived down?
It sort of happened at the same time. Like, when I opened the door, there were already people walking down the stairs. Obviously, I couldn't stay inside the boiler room. If anyone saw me close to Wolfgang's body, it would look really bad. The hallway was a bit easier to make out in the dark, so I walked over to a wall bordering one of the storage closets and hid behind it. And stayed as quiet as possible. I was still bleeding a little from Wolfgang's cut, though, and some of that blood ended up dripping onto the floor around me.
It's the blood on the underground floor! It's all coming together!
This was shortly before us tournament goers split up. And you made a run for it, yeah?
Mm-hmm. Down the hallway, up the stairs, and then as quietly as possible into my room. Since everything was still really dark, I had to patch myself using the Tozu trinket's protection as my light. I realize this is a lot, and I know it's hard to believe without proof, so If you guys could just give... I cleared up the blood pretty fast. Luckily for me, the cut wasn't that deep. There's still a chance it may leave a scar, though.
Holy crap! That's awful!
It's okay. I'll cover it back up again.
Why did Wolfgang attack you for no reason?
I wouldn't say it was for no reason.
You're being kind of insensitive, man.
Huh? I didn't mean it like that. What I'm trying to say is, Wolfgang's actions may look random from an outsider's perspective, but from his perspective, well, judging by his behavior, it seems like he saw something which shook him to his core.
Like, there was something in the room that Diana didn't see?
That's impossible! It was only me and Wolfgang in the boiler room.
I don't believe Jean meant it in a literal...
Wolfgang literally saw something?
He thought he saw something, is my point.
You mean he had been hallucinating?
What did Wolfgang hallucinate for him to turn out the way Diana described?
You'd be surprised by the sort of things our minds can invent. I'm lucky to have never experienced anything myself, but I know some who have hallucinated nasty things. Demons and monsters, or the feeling of being tortured. If Wolfgang went through something similar, I can see why he lashed out.
Now, what the heck is going on at sea?
Of course, these hallucinations don't just happen out of the blue. More often than not.
Substance-induced?
Just say Wolfgang took a hallucinogenic.
Hallucinogenic?
One which induced a lot of fatigue, too, judging by the way he lumbered about in Diana's account.
It would explain why Wolfgang mostly stayed in one place.
One place, which happened to be in the water.
Seems very deliberate. I reckon the killer knocked Wolfgang unconscious in order to drag him into the water, but knew he would eventually wake up again. So they drugged him with something which would basically make him despondent. As for where the drug came from...
Oh no!
Don't
tell me the killer...
Don't tell me.
I knew exploring it was a
Only
bad
one
idea.
person went to a pharmacy.
It? What's this it we're talking about?
It's the pharmacy, obvious. Why the heck did we think leaving that place open was a good idea? Now someone's stolen an item and drugged Wolfgang.
Fuck! I knew our promise was too good to be true! I can't trust any of you guys!
And don't say Wolfgang drugged himself! Who wants to be tortured by demons?
Well, stranger people do exist.
That's rich coming from you!
Yeah, people, Anyway. But haven't already put the...
If we know where the perpetrator got their chemicals, I guess our next step is figuring out how they did the drugging.
Agreed. It would help us better understand the timeline of events, and potentially even validate Diana's testimony.
Sounds like you guys can lose. I'm the kind of person who knows someone back to front the moment I meet them. If you haven't already realized, I've gone and read this.
You're the last person I trust to reach a correct conclusion.
Just you wait! The second you hear what I gotta say, you'll be eating those words.
No.
I bet the killer took a pill and forced Wolfgang to swallow it.
Just jab him at that point.
How would the killer make him swallow a pill? There was no proof they restrained him.
Didn't the killer knock Wolfie out? Maybe that was their way of restraining him.
You can't force an unconscious person to swallow a pill.
What if it was a drug? You don't need to eat.
Like an inhalable substance?
Oh yeah, like a powder or something.
The pharmacy does have a large collection of over-the-counter sedatives, but there's too many for us to isolate any specific one.
I bet the killer took a pill and forced Wolfgang to swallow it.
Just jab him.
You did jab him.
When Wolfgang's wounds were discussed earlier, it was mentioned he had a tiny red dot below the bruise on his neck. During the investigation, I thought this dot was a scab from a mole or pimple. But knowing Wolfgang was drugged, it's clear to see what it really is. A puncture wound.
Considering the timeline of events, an injection would check out. If Wolfgang got drugged a little after 8:15 a.m. and was already feeling the effects when Diana arrived at 8:45 a.m., then we're dealing with something which entered his bloodstream in under 30 minutes. Any normal pill would have taken, probably an hour to dissolve.
Whilst an injection would be much quicker.
That's probably another reason why the killer knocked Wolfgang unconscious. It would have been incredibly difficult to inject him if he was still moving around. Only when they had him right where they wanted, dazed and unable to fight back, did they plunge the syringe into his neck.
With said syringe being filled with a hallucinogenic.
But if this all happened a few minutes after 8:15 a.m.
What? Why is it impossible?
Because everybody's got an alibi for that time. I mean, Damien and I were in my dorm room, and the other
8:15 a.m. Yeah, I was already in the dining hall with Jet, Mark, and Eva.
I left Wolfgang's dorm right after the morning announcement and spent the rest of the hour with Sean.
When Nona and I were in our dorm room together.
And me and Eloise were already sitting down in...
Toshiko was giving me the medication she grabbed from the pharmacy.
And,
Oh no.
Wait.
If everyone can be accounted for, we really can't discern a suspect.
So, we're back to square one?
Someone here must be lost.
And doesn't plan to...
If everyone has an alibi for 8:15 a.m., is it possible the killer never actually attacked Wolfie at that time? But his little note said to come by at 8:15 a.m., didn't it?
Ingrid, do you remember what you said when we couldn't figure out who stole Desmond's taser?
To be honest, I'm drawing a blank.
You suggested we switch subjects and discuss Wolfgang's injuries instead. As a result, we ended up unraveling more about the case than if we had stuck to the original Right now, we're at a dead end. If we can't get any more leads out of this current discussion, then that's a sign to switch our focus.
Switch our focus to what?
I want to take another look at Diana's testimony.
mine?
Back when you were describing Wolfgang's death, something stuck out to me.
Tell everyone no, yeah.
flash of light Diana described must have been the generator exploding, with the darkness afterwards being the blackout. Think about the order of events there. In just a few seconds, the boiler room's generator explodes, and Wolfgang falls over dead. Doesn't it sound like the two are correlated?
Oi, didn't we go over this already? We did. The generator has nothing to do with Wolfgang's death. Its wires weren't touching the water.
But the coil was.
Which is why the murder weapon is the taser gun.
Diana said she never used the taser, though.
She's lying!
What? That's not true! I
Yeah,
never
it is,
fired the
girl.
gun!
Because you were in the pharmacy, you could have poison anyway called the headache. And she didn't Ingrid say she was like knocked out after you took the medicine? So it had to be her.
It's all good.
She don't have.
I believe you.
Her.
Sure, nobody can dispute the gun was fired. What can be disputed, though, is when it got fired. I wouldn't be surprised if the killer fired that gun way in advance. Like, sometime before Wolfgang arrived downstairs and left it in the boiler room for us to find later.
What? So the taser gun isn't the murder weapon?
If Wolfgang wasn't killed with the taser gun or the generator, what other options are we left with?
The taser gun is the only option which makes sense. The murder weapon can't be anything else. And anyway, the only proof Diana never shot the taser is her own...
Ava! What do you mean?
All the evidence supporting your version of events is circumstantial. The note you showed us? That could be a fake alibi you made for yourself. The fact that it has the same handwriting as Wolfgang's is already suspicious.
Couldn't that just mean the same person tricked them?
If you earnestly believe Diana didn't write it, then maybe. But do you see what I'm saying? There's no proof Diana never wrote the notes. There's only her word to go by. Because if she did write them, everything about her entering the boiler room at 8:45 a.m. and being locked inside could be a total lie.
I get what you're saying. But if we run with the idea that Diana was the one waiting for Wolfgang all the way back at 8:15 a.m., then we're stuck with the issue we had last time. Why did Diana wait over an hour to kill him?
That's also circumstantial. None of us know what really went on between those two in an hour. Ruling someone out because they took a long time to murder is stupid.
Without context? Sure, I'd say the same. But since the boiler room is unlocked, anyone can enter. If Diana knocked Wolfgang out, then she took over an hour to kill him with that info in mind.
Okay, but who would enter?
And how would she even hide the room?
No one wants to make a detour down some gross, freaky-looking basement. The boiler room is probably the most covert place a person can be.
The easiest place to kill. They have a lot of things.
Diana claims she didn't write the notes, and she claims she didn't shoot the gun. But where's the hard proof she didn't do any of these things?
The answer lies in what destroyed the generator.
What?
Didn't we already talk about that?
All you guys did was discuss theories, never anything concrete. Settling for a theory isn't good enough when our lives are on the line. In the same way Ava can't rule out Diana's involvement in the case, we can't rule out the generator.
So we have to figure out what should we do? Just throw out a...
It's what we've been doing this...
Oakley dokley. All right, everyone. Let's put our thinking hats on. If we work together, we'll unravel this mystery for sure. Ready? On your marks, get set, go! Why did the generator blow up?
Could have just been an electrical fault.
So, a coincidence?
Is this the best situation? To be waving stuff off as a coincidence?
Did the killer throw something at the generator that made it explode?
Perhaps it's the fault of the taser gun? The electrical discharge it released might have connected with the generator and created an overabundance of energy, which caused everything in the circuit to pop.
Probably. There's no proof anything besides the taser.
In that case,
The generator blew up after Wolfie got shot with the taser.
Such a dastardly taser, leaving so many victims in its wake.
Why did the generator blow up?
Could have just been an electrical fault.
So, a coincidence?
Is this the best situation? To be waving stuff off as a coincidence?
Did the killer throw something at the generator that made it explode?
Perhaps it's the fault of the taser gun? The electrical discharge it released might have connected with the generator and created an overabundance of energy, which caused everything in the circuit to pop.
Probably. There's no proof anything taser was involved.
No, that's wrong!
Yep.
Unfortunately, Ava, I have to disagree. You say nothing but the taser could have been involved in the murder. The shrapnel in the water.
You mean those bits of red metal which were floating around?
Right. The ones that look like the aftermath of an explosion due to their proximity to the generator. It's safe to assume the two are connected.
Can't that just be debris left by the generator?
Except this debris is a completely different color. It lacks the rust the generator has accumulated. We're obviously looking at the remnants of something else. Which means...
This is it.
Wait, what? That don't look like it.
In the water was also an extension cord, half of which had been burnt away.
Huh?
Seems that cord has the misfortune of floating around the wrong place.
From what I saw in my investigation, the building's extension cord supply seems to be kept inside storage closet D. So in a way, yeah, it was...
Storage closet D, huh? It was hard to make out much of it in the dark. And after the power came on, Kai came screaming for us to leave our closets. But I do recall seeing some extension cords peeking out from behind a shelf.
Since we already know the killer raided one storage closet, anyone else willing to bet they raided this one too?
The hell did they need an extension cord for?
Probably something involving the generator, given its proximity to the core.
Same thing with the red bits. Even though we don't know what they are.
Go for it. Not in the boiler. Okay. We tired with this. Oh. Who's that? all the other options ruled out? Or we can turn toward the... Smell?
This is it.
Yeah.
Hold that thought. We may be able to identify the shrapnel using context clues. During the investigation, there was a strange smell permeating the boiler room. It took me a moment to notice, but when I did... Well, the best way to describe the scent would be if you mix cereal and alcohol together.
Cereal and alcohol? Talk about specific.
Tis a sign a chemical reaction was at play.
Wait, you recognize the smell?
Chemical reactions can produce some pretty pungent odors. Usually something to the tune of alcohol mixed with cereal, or fruits, or eggs. I noticed the smell going into the investigation, but it had completely slipped my mind until now.
Could it be a chemical reaction was caused by the
You
taser?
did. You did. No, but you own one in the pharmacy.
The gun never touched the water. There's no reason for it to be the source of the smell.
What about the generator?
Considering the state of it, that generator would smell more burnt than anything else.
If the chemical reaction can't be explained by what we already know, like the generator or the taser gun, we need to consider the possibility that the explanation is the one piece of evidence still evading us, the shrapnel.
Can someone translate this into less complicated talk?
It was just a long-winded way of saying he's using process of elimination.
I know it sounds like a stretch, but if you follow this line of reasoning, a lot more questions start getting answered. Think about it. If the smell and shrapnel are linked, then whatever object the shrapnel belongs to must contain chemicals.
So we're looking for a metal object, which is also packed with chemicals?
Surely something like that would be kept inside the pharmacy.
So
looking at my notes, when we originally visited the pharmacy, I recorded everything I saw. A bright red metal object would have definitely caught my eye, but I don't see one written here.
I got lots of metallic objects in the dorm room, but nothing chemical. Just big old slabs of metal.
That would be the one then. No way, Jet to kill him.
It has to be you!
Jet, I need to ask you something.
What's up?
Can you tell me what's inside your dorm room?
Like, a full-on list?
Whatever works.
I got a pretty gnarly collection of parts and accessories. Blind spot mirrors, lithium batteries, wheels, spare brakes, you name it. Oh, I even have the legendary mantle from the 1984's Grand Prix.
That's what I was hoping to hear.
Cool. So, why'd you want to know? Unless... Wait, I'm not being suspected, am I? No. Don't try to roll me into this, bro. I've got nothing to do with the murder.
I know you don't. You have an alibi. The only reason I ask is because that mysterious red shrapnel may be the remnants of one of your lithium batteries.
What?
I see. A lithium battery might explain the smell in the air.
And lithium? That's an explosive substance. If it made contact with water, gosh, you'd be left with a mess and a half.
Wouldn't someone have heard an explosion, though?
I did.
Really?
During the tournament. Right before we lost power.
Oi, that's right. That was a burn.
Wait! I remember hearing it too!
I initially assumed the generator made the noise somehow. But if Jet's car batteries contain an explosive
Hey, Jet! Were your batteries bright red at all?
Maybe?
You don't know for sure?
I never took the batteries out of their packaging. The packaging isn't red, I can tell you that, but the actual batteries? Yeah.
So it can't be proven beyond a reasonable doubt?
Pretty much.
Well, what's the reaction time of a lithium battery? When a lithium battery hits the water, how long does it take to combust? I think, once we know that, we can decide whether or not the battery is relevant to the case.
A lithium battery would be an almost instantaneous reaction. I'm pretty sure.
Lithium isn't a metal I've worked with, but it got beat into my head never to mix it with substances it doesn't like. All that electricity, the battery would have let out when it hit the water. It must have went straight into poor Wolfie.
There's warning labels on the battery for a reason.
Okay, if the reaction is instantaneous, then the battery would have entered the water only seconds before the generator exploded. That's really weird.
Is it?
According to Diana's testimony, when the explosion happened, she was still holding the taser gun. In which case, who threw the battery into the water?
Huh. Good point. We can rule out Wolfgang, since the Blackens can only be a student who kills another student.
It was only Diana and Wolfgang in the boiler room. So unless Diana herself was the one to throw the battery, then the battery can't play a part in the murder.
I didn't throw the battery!
Damn.
If the battery is related to the case, only Diana could have thrown it in the water.
But my arm had been cut! Lifting a battery would hurt too much!
Neo batteries are pretty lightweight, though.
The battery clearly couldn't have fallen from somewhere. So it must have been submerged another way. Perhaps something akin to what Eva described?
If that battery is the murder weapon...
Why is there See? It's firing.
The battery would have landed in the water, a few inches from the generator.
Not the hardest shot to make.
If the battery is related to the case, only Diana could have thrown it in the water.
But my arm had been cut! Lifting a battery would hurt too much!
Neo batteries are pretty lightweight, though.
The battery clearly couldn't have fallen from... So it must have been submerged another way.
The battery would have landed in the water, a few inches from the generator.
Not the hardest shot to make.
the case, only Diana could have thrown it in the water.
But my arm had been cut. Lifting a battery would hurt too much.
Neo batteries are pretty lightweight, though.
The battery clearly couldn't have fallen from somewhere. So it must have been some. Now is not the time for jokes!
Then look at Jen.
If the battery is related to the case, only Diana could have thrown it in the water.
But my arm had been cut. Lifting a battery would hurt too much.
Neo batteries are pretty lightweight,
I would have told you one, but
The battery clearly couldn't have fallen from somewhere. So it must have been submerged in. Perhaps.
Judging by the shrapnel, the battery would have landed in the water. A few inches from the generator. Not the high
shot to me.
Okay, there'll be a live one before we end up the episode.
If the battery is related to the case, only Diana could have thrown it in the water.
But my arm had been cut. Lifting a battery would hurt too much.
Neo batteries are pretty lightweight, though.
The battery clearly couldn't have fallen from somewhere.
No,
Yep.
that's wrong!
That one.
No. The battery might actually have fallen from the generator.
What makes you say that?
Well, I'm gonna end up the video here. See ya, bye.